There is a specific genre of people who would describe a serial killer as misunderstood, while simultaneously locking their car doors in a grocery store parking lot at 2 in the afternoon. This is not about crime. This is about dark romance novels that bleed. I have been observing a phenomenon. Certain demographics, trackable crime through content with devotion typically reserved for religious texts, such as podcasts, documentaries, books, YouTube channels, entire streaming services dedicated to murder, abduction, and dismemberment. This alone is not remarkable. Humans have always been drawn to violence they do not experience firsthand. What is remarkable is the specific affection some express toward the perpetrators. I've seen the quotes. He's actually really attractive if you look at the old photos. I feel like he just needed someone to understand him. There's something about his eyes. These are direct quotes from online discussions about men who murdered multiple people. Not fictional villains, actual convicted murderers. Men currently in prison. Men who would, statistically, harm those expressing these sentiments given opportunity. But perhaps this should not surprise us. The publishing industry has spent 2 decades training audiences to romanticize exactly this dynamic. The brooding anti-hero, the possessive stalker, the man who kills for you. The quotes say it all. He was dangerous, deadly, and he was mine. This is not from a police report. This is from a best-selling romance novel. This genre is called dark romance, and the sales numbers are substantial. Let us examine the curriculum. Dark romance novels, a genre that has exploded in popularity over the past decade, frequently feature male protagonists who would, in reality, be classified as violent criminals. Stalkers, kidnappers, murderers, mafia enforcers, hitmen. The plots are always consistent. A dangerous man becomes obsessed with the protagonist. He isolates them, controls them, eliminates perceived threats with extreme violence. And this is framed not as abuse, but as devotion. Not as danger, but as protection. Not as pathology, but as passion. Butcher and Blackbird, Haunting Adeline, and Credence. These are not fringe publications. These are bestsellers. Millions of copies sold. Tens of thousands of 5-star reviews. Readers describing these relationships as goals. The formula is specific. The man is always dangerous to everyone except the object of his obsession. His violence is aestheticized. His possessiveness is romantic. His willingness to kill becomes proof of love rather than evidence of instability. And crucially, he must always be attractive, tall and muscular, aesthetically pleasing, and often wealthy, but that's just a bonus. The violence is packaged in an appealing container because that is how the fantasy functions. Audiences trained on fiction for decades where murderers are romantic heroes, and then express surprise when real-world murderers receive romantic attention. The fiction prepared the audience. The reality simply provided a face to project onto. The pattern is not new. It is merely accelerating. Let us examine the evidence chronologically. 1970s, Ted Bundy, described as charming and handsome, received thousands of love letters while on trial. Admirers attended his hearings to watch him, and some claimed he was too attractive to be guilty. He murdered at least 30 people. Richard Ramirez, 1980s, the Night Stalker, murdered 14 people, proposed to on multiple occasions, married one of his admirers while on death row, and they describe his eyes as kind. The Menendez brothers, the 1990s, killed both parents with shotguns, currently have social media fan accounts run by devoted followers who describe them as misunderstood and traumatized. The brothers receive regular fan mail, some of it explicitly romantic. Jeffrey Dahmer, 2022, a Netflix series about a serial killer who murdered 17 people. Their response on social media included a notable number of viewers describing the actor portraying him as attractive. Some extended this to photographs of Dahmer himself. He dissolved bodies in acid. And then in December of 2024, Luigi Mangione, allegedly murdered a healthcare CEO in Manhattan, was arrested. And within hours, social media flooded with people declaring him as attractive, calling him a folk hero, creating fan art, and raising money for his legal defense. The quotes all over the place. Free him, he's fine, and I would let him. Never mind, I won't finish that. These are actual posts about a man accused of premeditated murder. The response was so immediate and so widespread that news outlets reported on the phenomenon as its own story. And notice a consistency. In each case, the man was considered conventionally attractive, articulate, had a narrative that could be romanticized. The violence was abstracted. The victims were distant, and the danger was theoretical. This same person they wouldn't even look twice at if they walked down the street, had they not been convicted or accused of a crime. But here's where the mechanism becomes particularly revealing. The aesthetic requirement is absolute. Offenders who commit identical crimes receive vastly different responses based entirely on appearance. Ted Bundy received love letters. Less conventionally attractive serial killers receive no such attention. The crime is identical, but the response is not. Social media discussions about Mangione are instructive. The support was immediate and fervent, but it was explicitly tied to his appearance. If he was ugly, this wouldn't be happening. This is acknowledged openly. The hypocrisy is visible, but apparently acceptable. And this reveals that the romantic response to violence is not about the violence, it is about the aesthetics. The danger must be packaged correctly. Attractive face, compelling narrative, and articulate speech. Remove these elements, and this fascination evaporates. Which means it was never about understanding the criminal mind or sympathizing with trauma. It was about finding danger attractive when danger looks attractive. The justifications, the trauma, the system failure, the misunderstanding. These are post-rationalizations for an aesthetic response. And this pattern appears across contexts, different demographics, different types of offenders. Eileen Wuornos, serial killer, 7 murders, received minimal romantic attention. Described as unattractive, her violence was not romanticized. Contrast this with fictional female killers portrayed by attractive actresses. Harley Quinn, Villanelle, Jennifer from Jennifer's Body. Immensely popular, and the actress matters more than the actions. Audiences romanticize violence when it is aesthetically packaged. The mechanism is not consistent regardless of the offender's identity. The aesthetic requirement is universal. Humans will excuse substantial moral transgressions if the transgressor is sufficiently attractive. But certain subcultures have more extensive training in this particular framework. Decades of dark romance novels, stalker boyfriends in young adult fiction, possessive vampires, dangerous werewolves, the villain who is redeemed by love. Some entertainment industries provide superhero films where the villain is momentarily sympathetic. Others provide entire genres where the villain is the romantic lead. The training differs, the outcome is similar, but the intensity varies. So what does this reveal? This romanticization of aesthetically pleasing predators. It reveals that safety and distance create space for fantasy. That when threat is contained, it becomes aesthetic. That violence rendered harmless through incarceration or death transforms into narrative. Something you can engage with on your own terms. Something that cannot hurt you back. Similar to a lion in a cage rather than being exposed to a lion in the jungle. But it also reveals the profound dishonesty of the aesthetic requirement. If the sympathy, understanding, and romantic interest were generally about trauma, system failure, or misunderstanding, appearance would be irrelevant. But it is not. Mangione allegedly killed someone as of this recording. The response included fundraisers for his defense and marriage proposals. If an unattractive person with identical circumstances committed the identical crime, there would be no fundraisers, no proposals, no fan art, only condemnation. And everyone participating in this knows it. The hypocrisy is acknowledged openly. If he was ugly, we wouldn't care. This is stated explicitly, and yet the behavior continues because the aesthetic attraction overrides the moral calculus. This mechanism operates across demographics, but the particular manifestation, romanticizing incarcerated killers, has been cultivated through decades of specific fiction. Fiction that teaches readers that dangerous individuals are romantic when packaged correctly. And the fiction continues to sell. Dark romance is currently one of the fastest growing genres in publishing. Readers describe wanting morally gray men. Men who kill, but only bad people. Men who stalk, but only their love interests. Men who are dangerous, but only to others. These are the same justifications offered for real criminals. He only killed people who deserved it. He was driven to it by injustice. He is not dangerous to everyone. The fiction and reality blur. And when a real person commits real violence and happens to be attractive enough, the fictional framework is immediately applied. They become the protagonists. Their crime becomes their origin story. Their victims become narrative necessities. And the audiences who spent years consuming these narratives respond exactly as they were trained to respond. The tender predator, the misunderstood monster, the killer who just needed love. These are fairy tales people tell themselves when danger is sufficiently distant. But the fairy tale requires specific ingredients: attractive face, compelling story, articulate speech. Remove any element and the fantasy collapses. An ugly killer is simply a killer. An articulate killer is simply a criminal. The romance requires the aesthetic, and publishing industries have spent decades perfecting that aesthetic, teaching readers that dangerous individuals are romantic when packaged correctly, that violence is passion, that possessiveness is devotion, that someone who kills for you loves you more than someone who would never kill at all. Millions of books sold, billions of words consumed, audiences trained to find danger appealing when danger is attractive. The pattern will continue, but the fantasy requires never meeting the reality, never being the victim, never experiencing the violence firsthand. The appeal exists exclusively in distance, in safety, and the absolute certainty that the danger cannot reach you. Because proximity changes everything. Those writing love letters to the killers would not write those letters if the killers were free, would not find them appealing if they were on the other side of the locked door rather than behind it. At least you know where the prisoner is. At least the danger is clearly labeled. At least when they say they would never leave you, circumstances guarantee they are telling the truth. The bars work both ways. They keep them in and they keep you safe. And safety, it seems, is the ultimate romance. Even when the price of safety is loving someone who is dangerous. As long as the danger cannot reach you, as long as the danger is attractive enough, as long as the danger can be justified through narrative, that is the tender predator. Completely defanged, aesthetically pleasing, narratively compelling, and therefore finally lovable. Which tells you more about the fiction people consume than it does about the criminals they romanticize. And the publishers will keep printing, and the readers will keep buying, and their pattern will repeat. Just make sure they are handsome. Everything else can be forgiven, but these are just my observations.